Hello all, it's James Johnson, aka Sulfur Blade, and I am here with a video. I haven't done one in a few days, or more. Just to let you know kind of what's been happening in my life. I don't want to dox myself, but I'm in Oregon, and we've had a lot of fires. And sadly, those fires affected my life. I had to evacuate my home and get out of the way of a fire. Thankfully, I still had a home to go back to. Lots of other individuals were not as lucky as I was. The fire is a completely different topic I might talk about sometime. But for now, this segment, or this video, is going to be based on the correcting the narrative between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in response to coronavirus. It seems that there's a fairly sizable segment of the population that, for whatever reason, believes that Trump was weak on the coronavirus. And well, if you're told Trump was weak on the coronavirus, if you're told that Trump waved the white flag enough times, and you listen to mainstream media enough, maybe you might actually start to believe that bullcrap. Anyway, let's listen to some white flag waving to start off with, shall we? So I'll start with this clip here from Joe Biden.
Well, he raised the white flag. He has no idea what to do. He's zero. It's only one thing he has in mind.
All right, so he waved the white flag. This was in July 20th, 2020. Biden claims Trump waved the white flag. Here we are, June 30th.
Surrendered, waved the white flag, and left the battlefield.
And again, he's talking about Trump and the coronavirus. Biden has this problem with not being very original. He likes to reuse the same statements over and over again. You know, he rehearses these things for dramatic effect, and he says them over and over again. Well, I guess that's what you do when you're kind of old and senile. But I digress. So here he is most recently, September 10th, on Jake Tapper.
In fact, anything that happened had nothing to do with him. He waved a white flag. He walked away. He didn't do a damn thing. Think about it. Think about what he did not do. And it's almost criminal.
Woodward also reports.
It's almost criminal what Donald Trump didn't do about the coronavirus. So let's actually see what Donald Trump did indeed do about the coronavirus. January 29th, he created the Coronavirus Task Force. January 29th. To put you into some perspective of what January 29th was, that was actually still in the middle of the impeachment hearings. On the same day, on the 29th, the World Health Organization claimed that China's response was great. In fact, I want to show you that clip of the World Health Organization praising China, because I think it's most certainly worth a watch. This is, again, right here. See this? January 29th is when this clip was uploaded, on the very same day it was made. Here we go.
In reducing the spread of coronavirus to other countries.
Actually, I
praise China again and again.
Poured into Wuhan and Hubei from the central government
I will praise China again and again because its actions actually helped in reducing the spread of coronavirus to other countries.
Yep.
The WHO.
So you heard what the WHO said January 29th, that China was amazing, that they shut down and stopped the coronavirus. There was basically nothing to fear because, in fact, also at that time period, the World Health Organization was saying that there was no person-to-person transfer, and the world had nothing to fear. Well, on the very same day that the world had nothing to fear, and the World Health Organization claimed that China's response was great, on that very same day, what else happened? God damn it. Well, January 31st. So this is 2 days later when Trevor Noah here on The Daily Show is talking about what Trump did on the 29th.
Trump is still doing president stuff. And at the top of his to-do list lately is keeping people out of America, starting with supersizing the travel ban.
President Trump is planning.
So the travel ban, if you read this here, Trump says he'll add a few countries to controversial U.S. travel ban. January 22nd.
To widen its controversial travel ban. The plan will prohibit nearly all people from 7 countries. Now, the new restrictions are expected to be announced on Monday.
And this includes China, by the way.
What's going on in the world? Our country has to be safe. So we have a very strong travel ban, and we'll be adding a few countries to it.
Yes, Donald Trump is expanding his infamous travel ban. And it looks like it's going to be 6 countries from Africa and Asia and 1 from Europe, just to throw people off the scent. You know? Yeah. Trump's travel bans are like a reverse Oscars. A bunch of brown nominees and then 1 token white one thrown in for diversity. It's like, yeah. Now, I know Trump's State Department.
So yeah, I think this was the perfect way to show this bullshit, because there's really nothing funny about this left-wing social justice warfare idea of humor. Trump was taking action and protecting us by restricting travels by countries that could have brought the coronavirus to us, to include China. China's not on that list because he's talking about the expansion of the travel bans. China was the start of the travel bans. So let's continue on. On February 6th, I want to try to stick to a timeline here about things that happened. On February 6th, Trump and the CMS, they put out rules on infection control. I don't actually have a story here to show you, but that happened on February 6th. On February 24th, Trump went before Congress to ask for emergency funding to fight the coronavirus. Again, this is February 24th. He's done that. To put this into perspective, what did Nancy Pelosi do in February 29th? 5 days after Trump asked for emergency money to help fight the coronavirus.
You should come to Chinatown. Precautions have been taken by our city. We know that there's a concern about tourism traveling all throughout the world, but we think it's very safe to be in Chinatown.
It's very safe to be in Chinatown. You should come down to Chinatown. But again, Trump is failing to act. He waved the white flag. He didn't do anything to protect us. And here's the most powerful Democrat in the country basically being like, yeah, come on down. Let's have a mass gathering in Chinatown. Come on. It's fine. We'll have a party. No big deal. Does that not start to explain kind of the differences going on here? Is it not apparent that Trump was on top of this issue long before any of the Democrats started to politicize this issue and try to use it against him? But I digress. On February 29th, which is the same day that Nancy Pelosi does her Chinatown trip, Trump again expanded travel restrictions. So we went from China to those seven countries that were joked about by Trevor Noah, and then he expanded travel restrictions again on February 29th to try to stop the spread of coronavirus coming into the country. And again, he was blamed for being xenophobic when he did that as well. Oh, speaking of xenophobic, what about when Trump, God darn it, I keep doing that. When Trump actually, here it is, January 31st. Here's what Joe Biden has to say about Donald Trump's travel restrictions with China.
Where the credibility of the president is most needed, as he explains what we should and should not do. This is no time for Donald Trump's record of hysterical xenophobia.
It's going to hurt Biden. It's going to hurt him.
Indeed, we hope it'll hurt him. So yeah, January 31st, Biden claims that Trump is hysterical, xenophobic for shutting down travel to China. But that's not the only time he says that. In fact, in continuing our timeline here, March 11th, the World Health Organization declares a worldwide pandemic. On the very same day, March 11th, Trump shuts down travel to Europe. Where are we here? Here we are. March 11th. Here's some words from Donald Trump.
I've decided to take several strong but necessary actions to protect the health and well-being of all Americans. To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days. The new rule.
To think we shut down travel to Europe. That's a pretty big thing to do. You know, it's Europe are some of our closest allies. They're part of the whole Western bloc of Western society, if you will. Shutting down travel to and from what many Americans think of as like the civilized world is almost unheard of. In fact, so unheard of that Joe Biden again came on and made xenophobic remarks about Donald Trump and his travel bans with Europe. The very next day, Biden went on the record and said Trump was basically nuts for shutting down travel with Europe. All right, so now let's continue on. Oh, right. I've gotten this a little out of the timeline here. March 4th, which is before March 11th, which is when the World Health Organization declared the pandemic and Trump shut down travel to Europe. On March 4th, Trump pulled together the pharmaceutical labs and basically told them, hey, we need to fast track testing and a vaccine. That was in March 4th. before the World Health Organization actually declared a worldwide pandemic, and before Donald Trump on March 13th called a national emergency, and before Donald Trump on March 13th put in restrictions to protect nursing homes, and before Donald Trump on March 16th mobilized the country against COVID and shut the country down. We were, in fact, the very first country to go on lockdown in Western society. We were before New Zealand, we were before Australia, we were before Germany, we were before all of them. March 17th, Trump lifts telehealth restrictions so that people could receive medical assistance via their computer online. Trump lifted restrictions that were hampering the ability to do telehealth online. March 18th, Trump invokes the Defense Production Act. March 27th, Trump uses the Defense Production Act to force General Motors to make ventilators. Prior to that, he was just waving the Defense Production Act like a carrot in front of GM. GM was failing to take the carrot, and he finally had to say, look, you need to make the damn ventilators. It's not a request. It's an order. And GM started making ventilators. April 11th, Trump went ahead with Project Airbridge, which was a huge mobilization of logistics to bring in needed PPE for the country from various other places throughout the world, to include China. And that's because we really needed the PPE. And why did we really need the PPE? Because the previous administration left us with none in the stockpile. But of course, nobody talks about that. And then things started to get real. Then New York started to heat up, right? This is kind of how this timeline's going, right? Now we're heading into April, and that's when New York starts to go nuts, and you start to have all the deaths in New York and New Jersey. Well, during that phase, if you remember, Trump sent in hospital ships to New York. He turned the Javits Center into a giant hospital. And if you remember what happened in New York never used the Javits Center. It never used the hospital ship that was sent to it. There was also a hospital ship sent to Los Angeles. It didn't get used much either, but Los Angeles was kind of a different story than New York. They didn't have anywhere near the huge amount of cases that was in New York. And for whatever bizarre reason that still is yet to be understood, the governor of New York decided that it was a good idea to send people with COVID cases into nursing homes. And then now he's trying to blame that on Trump, that Trump made him do it, which is just preposterous to the extreme. But yeah, so Trump moved heaven and earth to fight the coronavirus. And now that we did the job, right? The mission was to flatten the curve. The mission was to get through the bad portion of it without flooding our hospitals and putting our hospitals over capacity. That was the mission of this original shutdown, was to flatten the curve. Now Trump is in reopening mode, right? It's now about getting the economy back on track. But the Democrats have flipped the script. They're like, no, we can't reopen. We have to stay in permanent shutdown. To open up is to risk all these human beings to death, and we need to be scared of our shadow, and we need to hide under a rock, and we can't go anywhere. But at the same time, we can peacefully protest and burn down buildings and city streets. I mean, the world is just, I can't even, Anyway, coronavirus has become political. Mainstream media says Trump did a horrible job. Joe Biden says he waved the white flag. But the proof is in the pudding. Donald Trump did more to fight and stop the coronavirus and flatten the curve than any Democrat politician. And he did this all before the Democrats even cared. Think about it. February 29th, Pelosi was going to Chinatown. March, April is when New York went up in flames. When New York went up in flames, Democratic politicians finally started to take notice, and they finally started to spin the narrative into Trump is bad. You know, that's when the Orange Man bad shit finally started to happen. Before that, there were actually prominent Democrat politicians, from the Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles to the governor of New York, saying Trump has done everything we've asked him to do. They went on TV and said Trump was great. He picked up the phone when we called him. He was right there and gave us everything we asked for. But now it's mainstream media doing everything they can to try to spin this all into Trump did bad. He failed us with the coronavirus. And it's just absolute bullshit. It's just beyond bullshit. If Joe Biden was in charge, do you think he would have created a coronavirus task force on January 29th? No. Do you think he would have shut down travel to China on January 29th? No. Do you think he would have increased travel bans to the 7 other countries on the following day? No. Do you think he would have got together with the CMS to lay out clear rules on infection control on February 6th? No. Do you think he would have gone to Congress on February 24th for emergency funding? Nah. Do you think he would have went to Chinatown with Nancy Pelosi on February 29th? Probably. Do you think he would have expanded travel restrictions on February 29th? Probably not. On March 4th, do you think he would have called the pharmaceutical countries in and ordered them to begin figuring out testings and vaccines for the coronavirus and to cut government red tape and restrictions on doing so? No, he would have if anything, he would have increased the bureaucracy and made it harder and more stringent to get the vaccine. Because, oh my God, if we get a bad vaccine, then you know, we're all gonna die, because that's how Democrats think. Everything's gonna kill us. Everywhere you turn, the shadow is going to strangle you. Do you think on March 11th, when the World Health Organization declared a pandemic, do you think he would have turned around and shut the country down 2 days later and declared a national emergency? Probably not. He probably would have waited for other countries to shut down and been like, okay, they did it. Okay, now we can do it. We weren't the first ones. That's what Joe Biden would have done. He would have been like, oh, England did it. Okay, I guess we should do it now too. You think he would have put in restrictions to protect the nursing homes on March 13th? Probably not. On March 16th, do you think he would have mobilized the country and shut it down? On March 17th, do you think he would have lifted telehealth restrictions? On March 18th, do you think he would have invoked the Defense Production Act? Did they invoke the Defense Production Act for H1N1? No. On March 27th, do you think Biden would have used the Defense Production Act to force GM to make ventilators? Doubtful. April 11th, do you think he would have done Project Airbus to bring in needed PPE? Maybe. Okay, at this point, in April 11th, when stuff was hitting the fan, I think this is when Democratic politicians would have started to take notice and started to attempt to do something. And they probably would have looked and been like, wow, we don't have much for PPE. We need to do something about that. And then they would have begged and pleaded and tried to bring in PPE from outside countries, like Trump did. Though they would probably have done it in a more pathetic fashion. Please, 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 we really need it. And China would have been like, yeah, you guys really need it, don't you? How about you just give us your firstborn kids for the next 30 years? And the Democrats would have been like, sure, whatever you want, China. Anything for you guys. But yeah, that's basically the gist of the differences between Donald Trump and Joe Biden when it comes to coronavirus. The Democrats would have you think Donald Trump raised the white flag and gave up. That's the narrative they want you to believe. But when you actually go through and you actually do the fact checking and you actually figure stuff out on a day by day fashion and you look at what really happened, the picture is a much different story. Anyway, I'm James Johnson, aka Sulfur Blade. This is my content. Hopefully you're enjoying it. If so, please leave a like and subscribe. And until the next time, all, peace.